This week's episode is brought to you by Humango, Super League Triathlon's official AI coaching partner. Humango is a unique training platform that will improve athletic motivation and performance because it understands how we train and why we train. Hugo, their AI assistant, understands your goals and changing commitments to continuously build an adaptive training plan with regular guidance for athletes of all levels. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chute Show, presented by Super League Triathlon. And gee, haven't we got a lot to look back on after the Arena Games in Singapore. We've all just stopped sweating from that. And I welcome, we're missing Tim Don. We'll talk to him later on. He's over in the US, having been at the IRONMAN World Championships. But we do have Chris McCormack, who is in Poland right now, and Annie Emmerson, who is at home, having got a lovely new paint job in her spare room. Looks beautiful, Annie. Congratulations.
Thank you, Will. Yeah, it was quite risky, wasn't it? I've got deep blue, gone away from the greys.
We've confused all the people that are listening to this but not watching the YouTube version, but you can catch it at superleaguetriathlon.com if you're desperate to see the colour of Annie's spare room. But of course, as always, the Chute Show brought to you by Humango.ai, a unique platform designed to improve athletic motivation and performance. And I can tell you that's two things which I need a lot of. So we're going to look back at the Arena Games, and then of course after that, just only over the weekend just gone, was the first WTCS race in Yokohama. First win for a European woman there in a decade in Georgia Taylor-Brown, but we'll get to that. First of all, though, obviously we're all on the ground at Arena Games in Singapore. It was fantastic to be there. It was fantastic to see these athletes do what they do, but especially you can't even really tell on the television, but just how hot, humid, and heavy it was there. And for the performances that we saw were just quite incredible. Macca, what's your take overall on how the Arena Games final played out?
It was better than I expected. You know, for us, it was the first opportunity to actually see one up close and personal. I know Annie and Tim and the team, you know, we're always calling the event from Australia. So to actually feel the vibe with a backdrop like we had at Marina Bay Sands there in downtown Singapore was remarkable. And just to see how fast it really is it was above and beyond what I expected, and the racing was, I think, some of the best of the season's racing at the Arena Games season. So overall, I just remember how hot it was and how great the racing was.
That's pretty much my takeaway as well, to be fair. How hot it was and how great these athletes were to dig as deep as they did and set the numbers that they did in such conditions. Annie, you've been obviously poolside or reservoir side, I guess, over the course of the three, and overall your impressions from the championship series. It really came into its own in 2022.
I absolutely love Singapore. I kind of walked around all day with a massive smile on my face, even though the rain hit us hard, which just made it doubly humid. But I loved the open water swim, and I loved, we saw a sprint finish. I loved the run up, the intensity of it. And, you know, we saw the mistakes that were made, the very small ones that, you know, eventually, you know, completely changed the course of the racing. Aurelien Raphael with a 6-second lead in the 200-meter swim, then kind of losing the plot when he couldn't find his right bucket to put his shoes in. But it was just phenomenal, and it was just electric. That's the word I use. You're absolutely on your toes the whole time. And London, Munich, they were brilliant. Singapore, for me, topped it all.
Yeah, it did change things a little bit, like what happened in the championship series. We went to Malibu, and then the ocean swim and swimming in and out there changed things. And obviously there was a shark. We didn't have that one in Marina Bay Reservoir, but we like to mix things up in the final and change the way things are, and that helps some people and it hurts some people. But in the end, the cream kind of rose to the top anyway. So in the men's, and we'll start with the men's because you touched on that. Obviously, Aurelien Raphael was there, focused after his technical in London to win that world title. He ended up finishing last in the final, such as the issue, I guess, with such fast racing. You can't get your head back in the game after making a mistake like that. But the Justus Nieschlag, who we thought would be strong, you know, he got hurt a little bit with the fact that it wasn't a pool swim. And then in the end, it was the guys that were up the pointy end in Yokohama as well, Hayden, Wilde and Alex Yee, who really fought it out on the day. So changing into an open water format really threw some spanner in the works, Macca.
Yeah. Well, for me, that was the big the big unknown was this open water, having seen how critical transitions were and how difficult it was to make up any gaps. You know, the non-drafting that we brought in for the London event, I think, was a big positive outcome. And you know, I was concerned with the open water in Singapore that those gaps that can naturally occur when you lose a body length and you sit on someone's feet could play out heavily on the racing. But Hayden Wilde showed that wasn't the case. You know, Orion Raphael went off and had, as you said, Annie, a 6-second lead in that opening stage, and lost that with a mistake in transition. So transition's still critical. That heat was all the athletes talked about all week. We went through those heats during the week, and the athletes trying to recover. We saw in the final a lot of the cooling mechanisms they were bringing in. But for me, to see Hayden Wilde do his first Arena Games race and to do it the way he did and take away where I think one of Hayden's biggest advantages is his skill set that he has on a bike, to nullify that in Arena Games racing and still do what he did against Justus Nischlag, against Orion Raphael, these athletes that have been dominating, was remarkable. And Alex Yee, he just continues to improve. He's an Olympic gold, Olympic silver medalist, and he's getting better and better and better. So I thought the men's race was magnificent. I thought, I was disappointed for the Frenchman to make that mistake and not be where he wanted to be, but to get on the podium, I think he was very, very happy with. But the deserving winner was Alex Yee of the championship, and I think he should be very, very proud of himself.
In that final, Alex Yee was last out of the water, if you remember. And then when he got onto the run, he was second onto the treadmill. So, and we talk about his run a lot, but he biked his way from last, and then running up that transition probably helped him a little bit. It was 150 meters. And then when he got onto the treadmill, he was 5 seconds behind Hayden Wilde. And that's a huge bike for Alex Yee, who's a guy who we always talked about needs to get bigger and stronger and et cetera, but has no problem with that whatsoever, Annie, when it's just pure watts that comes into it and no drafting.
He's such a phenomenal athlete. He's so light as well, and his swim has improved massively. But I think what Alex does is he brings his game head to the race. Whilst he's not cocky at all, he wants to win, and he's so mature for his age in terms of the experience he has. Which, let's face it, it's not huge, on the big stage. And I think that's the difference. He's a huge talent, but he stays really calm. And I think it was obvious when we saw Aurelien just kind of slightly lose the plot. He had 6 seconds, and then it was almost like he didn't throw his toys out the pram, but it was like, oh shit, I've lost it. But Alex doesn't do that. And we've seen him many times where you just think, oh, he's not coming back from this. And, I think his head, his mind, and how strong he is and his talent just means that he's going to be hard to beat for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, absolutely correct. I mean, and we're going to talk about him again later. But Alex Yee got better and better. And what I liked about what Alex said at the end, he's humble in terms of that. He goes, I didn't have the result in Munich or in the normal rounds before we got there. But he said, I came here to prove something to myself, that I have the swim that I've been working so hard on. Like I said, he was last out of the water. That was in the first stage, and his swim got better and better. And that's what set him up in the end to be able to bike and run away with it. But he came to prove something to himself, which I think, sometimes it helps you probably stay in your zone when there's so much going on, to just know you have to nail your personal goals. I mean, you know better than me, Macca, but it looked like he came to prove something. And he did so, obviously knowing he had to go to Yokohama and race, but he wasn't gonna leave there without the world title or the inaugural world title first.
Well, without question. We saw that same momentum in the championship series last year with Alex. He had a slow start in London and built through to really have a great championship series. But yeah, as he said, he's still learning, and I think he's building that confidence, and that's what he came to the Arena Games did. And we saw his swim for the entire series. It wasn't a one-off. He swam well in Munich. He swam well in London. He swam well in the pool, open pool. He had that one setback, which was just his get off the block speed that he was nullified. You saw him in any match swim race when we, especially in the second stage, he could match anyone in that water. So I thought Alex is really becoming the true rounded athlete that I think he wants to be in his own head. He's already there. And now we're going to see even more improvement and more growth from Alex Yee. And we saw that in the race that came after Arena Games.
Yeah. So now Alex Yee is the Super League Championship Series winner. He's the Super League Arena Games winner, and he is now the leader of the World Triathlon Championship Series. There's nothing more that he could be doing over the last 6 months. there's no more to win, really. I guess he's kind of like the pint-sized Kristian Blummenfelt in that way. He just keeps winning everything he goes in. But, you know, he didn't have a spectacular swim compared to when you look at what Vincent Lewis done in Yokohama to just move straight onto that race. But he biked his way up and he ran away with it in the end in another incredible sort of max race with Hayden Wilde. It was just superb to watch those two come from Super League and do what they did in Yokohama. Annie, what did you think of that race in general, and Macca as well? Your thoughts off the back?
I mean, it blew me away. It was to watch him. Yeah, I mean, he was 35 seconds down actually on the swim. Hayden Wilde 47 seconds down. Obviously, we'll talk about Hayden in a minute. To come back from that, I mean, they obviously weren't working at the front of the race, but they had Vincent Lewis there who didn't finish sadly. But Yi just again showed that maturity to keep calm. That's what he does. You know, there's so many athletes that are so talented. Something goes wrong and they just go, "Oh, it's game over." It's never game over for Alex until you get to the finish line. But he pulled that 35 seconds, and I think it was a 9-lap course. In the first 2 laps, you know, he was back in there, and then he keeps himself out of trouble, and then coming off the bike, places himself well, and it was game over. You know, and again, I mean, look at the run times. I don't know how accurate the course is. I don't know if they've changed it, so I don't want to speak out of turn here. But he ran a 28:50, and looking over the history of the runs in Yokohama, no one has gone near that. I mean, it's phenomenal. And again, I mean, Hayden Wilde went with him, but did drop off at the end and lost around about 10, 15 seconds to him, but he was pretty close too.
Yeah, without question. I think those two, we've spoke about it a lot. We saw them at the Olympic Games, finished second and third behind Kristian Blummenfelt, who also had a big weekend of racing a couple of weeks ago. But those two athletes feed off each other, right? Those, you know, Hayden Wilde and Alex Yi is going to be a rival we talk about for quite some time. They're very good friends. They've sort of raced each other through the junior ranks, and they've grown up into this elite racing now, and they are the players of the racing. I thought you've nailed it with the way Alex Yi races, Annie, in the sense that his patience and his fortitude in the way he conducts his racing IQ is above and beyond his years. He sat off. Hayden has a tendency to run out very, very hard, apply pressure. Alex doesn't rush that. He sat off the back of Hayden for most of that run, used the pacer as if he was on a 10,000-metre track race and made the move at the critical time. We saw that in Tokyo. He ran the exact same run race. He's a very good sit kicker. I think he's going to evolve in that, and Hayden's a great ally on the bike, a great person to get to the front in his aggressive racing. And those two guys distances themselves immediately from that run group. So the run pace was definitely red hot. And from looking at it, I did that race 10 years ago. It looked like the same course. As you know, turnaround markers could be in different spots, but it looks like the same course, right? So I'm thinking, wow, that is ridiculously fast.
Did you run a sub 30-minute 10K there or not, Macca?
Mate, I was happy to run sub 31 back in the day, Will. No, I'm joking. No, it's usually very, very hot, so it can be quite warm that course. But coming from Singapore, they would have been ready for the heat.
I don't know how accurate this is, and I think you're right, Macca. I think it looked to me like it was on the same course. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's 4 laps of 2.5k. Kristian Blummenfelt was the closest in times in 2021 in a 29:26. Vincent Lewis 30:21 in 2019. He clocked a 28:50. I mean, just blown away with that, really.
Doesn't it feel like, 3 years ago we're talking about Vince like he's unbeatable, and now we're talking about Vince like he's in the previous generation? And he obviously had a bad time, but it was all about him. And then suddenly you go down and there's guys that are 4 years younger that are now suddenly hitting it. And then in 4 years' time, we'll be like, Hayden Wilde used to be good, but how about this kid who's right now is 13 years of age? He's running a 27:30.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous how quickly the bar gets raised, and that's awesome though. But there was a large period of time in that race where there was just a big bike pack. And I know that we always talk about this in terms of what happens in Olympic distance races like this and drafting races, that it doesn't – I don't necessarily always want to see a 10-kilometre shootout at the end. But I do like the way Hayden races. He always goes to the front, and maybe he shouldn't do that because he just should sit in and wait a little bit more, but he always seems to be at the front of those bike packs. But it was dry. It wasn't wet in the men's race. And, I mean, how do you – with the absence of an Alistair Brownlee or someone to just destroy the bike pack, I mean, how do they change that from being the standard procedure? within those races, Macca.
Look, the difficulty I've always thought and I've raced that Yokohama course twice, and a few of the events they have in Japan with the dead turns. They have 3 dead turns on that course, that loop, and those dead turns tend to bring the packs back together. You can't get that rhythm. When a group gets away, they can swap turns and get a rhythm. When you come to these very tight dead turns, it allows that second group to come together. And I personally believe they need to eliminate some of that dead turning on a lot of the courses. We talked about a lot with our Super League Championship Series course planning. We try and have wide entries and narrow exits out of those turns to string the groups out and make it a little harder to get back on to close those deficits that you've lost in the swim. But it's fundamentally the same. When nowadays the athletes, there's so much talent and so many people getting out of the water within a 20 to 30 second mark. You've got, it's very hard to get those gaps to stay awake, and it's up to World Triathlon ultimately to potentially start looking at how they can do that through course design, because a lot of these course rules and protocols were set in place from the mid-90s and have slowly evolved. But nowadays, those gaps aren't as big as they used to be, and we need to do something with course design. I think 3 dead turns on a circuit like that per lap is too many.
Yeah, can't argue with that. Alex Yee, 1:43.30 in the end there. Hayden Wilde 10 seconds back. And then there was just a whole bunch of Super League alumni. Leo Berger was 19 seconds back in the end to take third. Matty Hauser had the race of his career in terms of WTCS racing and picked up a fourth, who was 10 seconds further back from Pierre Lecour and Dorian Connings. But how good are the French going? 3 in the top 6. Vasco Velasa was there in 7th. Ricardo Batista, who I don't know that much about, was in 8th. Kevin McDowell and Antonio Serrazioni. But Matty Hauser, the resurrection of Australian triathlon is on, Macca. Like, we've changed. It's put 2021 in the rearview mirror.
We are back. We are back and ready for Birmingham. Right? Ready for the Commonwealth.
I don't know about that.
And he had an off day.
Apart from an off day?
Well, no, I'm just making that up just to stir it into Annie. But no,
all I'm saying, Annie, is that there's the same number. There's the same number of Australians and Brits in the top 10. Okay, so how about that? How do you like that?
Yeah, but I just want to. Well, it's obvious that the Brit was on the top of the podium. Matty Hauser, decent effort from him. Where's the rest of them? What's happened to Jake Birtwistle outside the top 10? Where's that guy of sort of 2018, 19? But God knows what's happening with the Australian Federation. That's another podcast altogether, isn't it? But the Frenchies,
not one that I'm going to be on.
No, me neither. But the Frenchies, another top 3 in the top 10. 3 in the top 10. No Van Saint-Louis there, but what a performance from Leo Berger. That was outstanding. And Dorian Connings, we know he's a winner of WTS previously, and he's maturing as an athlete. There were times gone by when it wasn't working for him and he'd just kind of drop out or something would happen, but he's up there. And Lecour, so much experience. So the Frenchies, they're going to be ones to watch this year as well. But
yeah, Jake Birtwistle, he had a terrible swim, Jake Birtwistle, and then had a chase on the bike the whole time, but he ran a sub 30-minute 10K too. So mate, that's just that's par for the course now if you're Jake Birtwistle. So I think there's some positives for him to take out into the next one. So let's hope that we do see him back to the kind of form we've seen before. Obviously, I remember all the way back on Hamilton Island, him running down the straight there at about 2-minute K pace to win one of those days in the wet, which was now obviously 5 years ago. But let's go to the women and let's start back at Singapore again. And it's an unpredictable beast, Arena Games racing. And the first real twist we had in that day was Jess Learmonth, who we did hear whispers of there was a niggle, there was potentially a hip issue. We didn't know how bad it was. And then she's so gutsy. I think a lesser athlete would have probably not raced that day. But Jess Learmonth was there to win and give it her all. But she only lasted 100 metres on the treadmill. How shocking was that, I guess, to see her do it, try and get back on, couldn't walk, collapsed again. Just a horrible way to go out for probably one of the great characters of Super League triathlon racing. Chris?
Yeah, and we saw it happen. As you said, we heard it in the build up. There was a lot of talk, and I know Annie had a word to her before the gun went off, and she said, "Look, I'll see how we go, and I feel pretty good." But we literally saw her on the treadmill while she was leading the race, while she was in a position. It wasn't as if she was out of action. She had a phenomenal swim. She was dynamic on the bike and running really well. And we literally saw the hip give way, and she had to step off and lie down, and that opened up the racing for Beth and others. But it was heartbreaking because she is such a front runner, and she brings so much momentum to the racing, to call. She sort of puts the hammer down, and all the women have to chase. I really felt for her. I really hope that she can get that worked on. It's not critical for her season, because I was looking forward to seeing Jess race this season, off that big successful Olympic Games, off last year's championship series in Super League, into that Arena Games racing where she's been so strong with Beth. I just thought she had big things planned for 2022. So I'm hoping that hit comes good and we see her hopefully in Leeds, maybe. I think I'm being a little optimistic, but it'd be nice to see her in that home race in Leeds.
Yeah, and you spoke to her. You were the first person to speak to her. Obviously, she has a great deal of perspective, Jess Learmonth, with things, and tends to get over things quite quickly mentally and look on the bright side of things, which we all love about her, but obviously devastated at that exact moment.
Oh, listen, I'm with Macca. Apart from anything, I wanted to see her race because I love to see her race. She would have pushed Beth all the way. She's the hardest athlete that there is, in Arena Games. Not taking anything away from anyone else. They're all bloody hard asses. But you know that there was real pain, because Jess doesn't stop, and she was completely incapacitated by that injury. We knew it was there the day before. We don't know what it was, but it obviously stopped her in her stride with like about 100 meters to go. And she only had to run two more 1Ks, but it just wasn't going to happen. So absolutely devastating. But for Jess at the moment, she has to worry that she hasn't, either qualified for the Commonwealth Games, which for me is like quite extraordinary. So I don't think she'll be in Leeds either, Macca. I mean, we're talking, just under 4 weeks to go, hoping that it's not anything too seriously. I don't know. I haven't heard anything back. But it was disappointing for all of us, actually, selfishly, because we want to see her race. She's the most entertaining of racers in Super League, whether it's Super League Series or Arena Games, and she was truly missed at the end of that final.
Yeah, we wanted to see her go head-to-head, didn't we? We wanted to see her go head-to-head with Beth Potter. We want it like the same way we want to see her go head-to-head with Beth Potter in Birmingham. But that might not happen either now, because she just won't have the qualification opportunities to get herself over the line. But where it kind of took the heat out of stage one there, because suddenly it was Beth Potter's to lose. She didn't look her most comfortable either, and we know there were some illness issues the previous night and some... of all the people who were suffering in the heat, coming directly from Leeds and living, born and raised in Scotland, not really the same conditions going on down there at the equator. But Sian Rainsley looked likely, and then in stage two, she dropped off, and then suddenly it was Beth's to lose. And Beth started playing tactics a little bit more than she may normally have. And that opened the door for Zsanett Bragmayer to go, okay, in that case, I'm going to have the race of my life, and I'm going to take it to Potter, and they were off the bike together. And then in that second stage, and then Bragmeyer took that long run into the water to gap her. And off the back of a 12th place in Tokyo, Zsanett Bragmayer ended up in stage 3 outrunning Beth Potter, which was outstanding. And it's good because we never spoke about her in the lead up to this, really. And then she just turned up and did the job.
Yeah, we've seen that from Zsanett Bragmayer. I saw her in our Super League Championship qualifier series a couple of years ago in Poznan, in Poland, when she qualified for the Championship Series with huge swims and massive runs. I never saw her translate that into any of the championship racing. She had great swims, but her run was off. We saw a glimpse of it in one of the Arena Games. You're going to put me on the spot here. I'm going to say it might have been Munich, where she was there, or she equaled one of the run times of the leaders. So she is capable of running well. And I think when Jess Learmonth was out, as you said, it opened the floodgates. She was able to build that confidence. She saw that Beth was really struggling in the heat, and Beth didn't hide that fact that she was not enjoying the heat all weekend. She struggled in the heats, and she was really fighting that for the entire weekend's racing, which shows the heart Beth Potter races with. But I think Zsanett she smelled blood in the water and was ready to attack. She's like a shark in in Marina Bay Sands, and she worked it the entire back end of it. And she nearly got away with or she did get away with some amazing racing.
She did, 4.2 seconds ahead in the end. And I think we can't lose sight of the fact that she was in the repechage that day, and it was hot. So she didn't go straight through from the heats. She was the only person who figured at the pointy end of any racing who actually had already raced 2 stages in the heat 5 hours beforehand and then turned up and did it again. So, I mean, like when you consider that, that's really one of the great efforts from Bragmeyer to be able to compete and to win and to outrun Potter in the last 400 metres to take it by 4 seconds. And she deserved every accolade that went her way, Annie.
Absolutely. And so brave as well, because, oh my gosh, Macca and I got on the treadmills. Well, Macca did, and then nearly pulled a quad to just.
He really did, didn't he?
Yeah, I did. We just thought, let's have a little go. And I'd had a little. I mean, it did look funny because for a split second, he looked like the world champion that he was, and then he had to hop off.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that bit.
I've got it filmed. I'll send it to you. But those machines are so bloody hard. And the fact that Zsanett didn't kind of go, oh, I'm going to get second here in the final. I went, no, I'm going to give it to you, Beth Potter. That's the one. Beth Potter. We've renamed her. She did. I can't get my words out. It's been a long day already. She was just really magnificent the way she didn't give in. I kept thinking, nah, she's going to drop off. She's going to drop off, and she didn't. And it was really great to see, someone else there. We didn't have Jess, challenging for the overall win in Singapore, not the series, obviously, but a fantastic performance. I've seen her in World WTS for quite a few years. As Macca said, always great in the swim, always up there, drops off on the bike, but she was great on the bike. She's pushing great power, and it was lovely to see the young Hungarian come through and take the victory that day. She definitely deserved it.
And on the double points, not only does she take the victory, but she's a vice world champion now in esports racing. So congratulations to Zsanett Bragmayer. Beth Potter, of course, is our Arena Games Triathlon esports world champion, and she can put that one in the back pocket. Georgia Taylor-Brown was third. She's never really been suited to Arena Games Triathlon. I think she's so not suited to the racing, but it's just a class that manages to carry her through to a third, fourth, and fifth place over and over again. But she, of all the people, when you compare the class of who they are as an athlete versus how they perform in arena games, she probably have the biggest gap, and especially when you consider what she turns around a week later and runs away from Flora Duffy and company and ends up winning in Yokohama, which was an incredible effort again. And as I said, no European woman has won there in 10 years, and Georgia Taylor-Brown just turns it on her head, has a magnificent run, runs the way that we know that she can, and just looks comfortable. Says afterwards she felt horrible. She always says that, but she keeps it all on the inside, and that was one of the great starts to a season from a Brit who just rose to the top like a phoenix, Macca.
Well, look, I think we all get excited to watch Georgia Taylor-Brown, especially over this longer distance, the Olympic distance. I think she is much better at that distance. The way her form is magnificent, swim, bike and run. She looks so controlled. She never looks under duress, under pressure. And I was really eager and keen to see the showdown between her and Bo Grant. Unfortunately, Bo Grant got brought down on the bike with Laura Lindemann, and we didn't see that. But Georgia Taylor-Brown just was never really looked to be struggling. That the group of women sort of got away. She sat in and just sort of made that move. And as you said, she always says, "Oh, I didn't feel good," and she's running away from everyone else every time after the race in the interview. I never felt good. I just made the move, and everyone sort of dropped off and then I just sort of hung on, and you look better than the people behind you, than the women behind you. But I love watching Georgia Taylor-Brown race. I think she just looks so easy, yet so fast, and seems to be having such a good time, and she's such a good role model for future generations of athletes. She's just awesome. And to see her win that race and now leading the World Championship Series again, she won that Sprint World Championships a couple of years ago, to be going in as the world number one to this year's series racing is pretty cool, and she's well deserving.
Yeah, she could be adding a 2022 world title to her 2020 one-off. I mean, I guess it comes with a bit of a caveat, the one-off race in 2020, but now with a full season, she'll be very much sniffing after that. And what about your thoughts on the race, Annie? Obviously, a lot of class came to the top, and the group biked away with Taylor Knibb and Flora Duffy and Maya Kingma, and Kirsten Casper was there, and a couple of the French women, and Taylor Spivey. But then eventually, as Macca said, just the pace too hot, and Georgia was the last woman standing.
Absolutely. I think Macca said it all about GTB. Such a cool chick, the most lovely person, the most talented athlete. She just sits so comfortably in a bike pack, and she looks so cruisy on the run. Let's talk about Leonie Perriot, though. She is a Team Cheetah member. Let's not forget. I think she had one of the best races, or the best race that she's ever had on WTS. She's picked up her swim. We know what a fabulous runner she is. So an outstanding performance for her. One thing I will point out about Jess is she reminds me, she's very similar to Alex in the sense, but she has more experience, that she stays very calm. And she ran away from the group and they ran back up to her. And I was wondering if that was going to throw her, but it didn't. They all came back together. She got about 10 meters on them. They came back together, and when the time was right, she took off again. Emma Lombardi as well, the under-23 world champion, brilliant debut performance for her, finishing in fourth. And Flora Duffy, she was good. I think maybe, she's got some work on her run to do. She didn't look as comfortable as she would do, but the Olympic champion, if third's a bad day on a WTS, it's not a bad day in our book, is it? But she'll want a lot more out of the next race.
Did you say debut?
For who?
Is that a word? You mean debut? Debut.
Debut? Is that what you Aussies call it? Debut.
That's what we say.
In Australia, we say
first race.
Debut. Debut.
Debut.
Are you picking up the English chick on the English? You guys let's be honest.
Bad.
An Aussie picking an English.
Debut.
Whatever. Listen, I'm struggling with my words. I've had a long weekend.
Debut.
But
Jeez Louise.
Debut.
All right. No, but okay, because I'm saying that because I feel bad because right now I just realised this, that we've got our Championship Series champions, both British. Our Arena Games Esports Triathlon World Champions, both British. Both race winners in Yokohama, British. It's hurting me. So then I lashed out, if I'm being honest with you.
I know that. I can say it's a bit childish, but I wouldn't expect anything more from you, Will.
No, I understand. I understand. I'm tired. You know what? We're just going to stop talking. That's probably enough. We've got plenty more coming up later on. We're going to hear from Tim Don, who's in isolation. Actually, in isolation from us. Actually, he's in America, and I'm speaking to him from our specialised headquarters where he's with the Zwift Academy as a mentor. I've been mentored by TD in the wind tunnel for the last couple of days, so I'll talk to him. Well, thank you guys. Thanks, Macca. Enjoy Poland. I'll see you over there in a couple of weeks. I've been let out of Fortress Australia again, so I'll see you over there for sub 7, sub 8.
Beauty. Looking forward to it, my friend. Good to see you, Annie. I'm flying up to London
you're not
tomorrow.
invited.
I'm not. No, I am invited. I'm just busy.
Oh yeah.
Macca keeps inviting people.
Yeah.
Never.
It's probably for the best. All right. I'll wave goodbye to you guys. We're going to hear from Tim later, but first we're going to go to Coach's Corner with Lance Watson. It's time for another Coach's Corner, brought to you by Humango, a unique platform designed to improve athletic motivation and performance. I think we could all use that. Go to humango.ai. And the great man himself, Lance Watson, Olympic gold medal coach, Ironman champion coach, triathlon Hall of Famer. He makes me say that contractually. He's here to join us and give us some insights. Lance, first of all, how are you going, mate? How was the weekend's racing? It was a lot on.
Oh, did you get any sleep this weekend? I'm not sure I did. There was something going on in a different time zone at all times, and opposite ends of the continuum too, as far as duration, intensity. It was exciting. It was an exciting weekend.
Yeah, it's almost too hard to go between the two because you're seeing guys out there with 210 heart rates for 12-minute racing and then switching to 8-hour racing. And then to see a guy, and then you look at a guy like Kristian Blummenfelt who goes from Super League all the way to Ironman, and you just, I guess you must wonder how it's possible that a guy can do things like that across the scales and collect the Olympic Championship and the World Championship and the World Record and the Ironman World Record and Super League race wins. It's just almost superhuman from a coaching perspective.
He's a special athlete. I mean, he's a generational talent, is what he is, and not all athletes can take it up to every distance. Can do it in short and do it long. Obviously, he can. You know, it really dawned on me watching both events this weekend that, well, first of all, a great athlete is a great athlete, and you're a student of the sport, and you learn how to transfer those skills from short into long, and you learn how to manage different distances at different distances and different courses. And then if you are lucky enough to have, you know, the help of a great coach who has experience and can maybe give you a shortcut to success, you know, in the long stuff too, so you're not making some of the mistakes that athletes were making 10 years ago. But on the other hand, I was thinking, you know, watching Singapore this weekend, and some of the Dan Dixon comes to mind as a young athlete who's coming up, and you know, where natural talent and that youthful speed can shine and develop in that arena as well, alongside some of these greats. And it reminds me of Formula One racing in triathlon Formula One racing in Australia back in the 90s, where guys like Macca and many of the great Aussies and internationals came up in a similar style of racing. And it was a great way for the top athletes to really hone their skills. But it was also a great entry point for some of the rising stars to make their first impressions, because they could, you know, stay in touch. A young athlete like Dixon might not be able to keep up for Olympic distance yet because he just hasn't developed as an athlete, but what a great platform and stage for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, what it really does is kind of democratize, you know, a partnership with World Triathlon democratizes the access to this, because federations can put athletes forth, and that's why we're seeing sort of 30, 40 athletes on a start list, and then we go through the heats and all of that before we arrive at the finals. And I guess that, and what I've noticed is that athletes who, and we've talked about it before, who might not shine in Olympic distance, even athletes that are in their mid-20s or later, seem to find a way to do it in this one, because it's a different set of tactics. And in that way, I suppose, coaching towards that kind of short distance stuff, because how would you coach a guy like a Dan Dixon and go, okay, you're good this way, would you say, let's stick with this kind of distances for the next 2 or 3 years, and then move forward? Because we always know that you go from Olympic to Ironman, or if you're Kristian, you just go back and forth however you want. But now you've got this new super short racing. How does that change what a coach's perspective of an athlete's progression is?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, you know, if you think about the Olympic distance of racing, and if you just were to take out the run portion, you're running 10K off the bike, which is kind of like running the second half of a half marathon, you know, as far as endurance required. And when you're trying to push up, you know, maybe 21, 22-year-olds to race at that distance, from a developmental pathway, it might be a little bit premature, just like it might be a bit premature to have 23, 24-year-olds stepping up to the 70.3 distance, which is almost like training to be a marathon runner at a young age. So this gives coaches the opportunity and the liberty to maybe fully develop an athlete, to develop those anaerobic and threshold pathways fully, completely, because if they do that, when they do step up to the next distance, and like much like Mac, he's going to like me, I keep referencing him today, but you know, he was able to you know, become a world champion at the Olympic distance before going up to 70.3 and dominating, then going up to Olympic distance and dominating. And if you are able to fully develop those anaerobic and threshold pathways properly in a young athlete, their ceiling is going to be higher when they go into the longer distances, while their ability to go faster at an aerobic pace will also be higher. So it's a tool, but in the reverse, you're going to have some athletes who just genetically have more fast twitch fiber, more anaerobic capacity, and they're going to top out at maybe sprint distance, even on the WTS circuit. You know, they might be a great 5K runner off the bike and not be able to carry it for 10K. So you're going to have other athletes like we see with Nishlag who can really shine in this, you know, and maybe if this had been around for him for the last, you know, 7 or 8 years, he would have been one of the all-time legends in arena sport, right? Like he could have been the one where they all look back on in 15 years and go, remember that guy? He dominated all those years, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he still could. I mean, he's already our most successful. He's pretty much podiumed in every single one. And,
exactly.
And there's plenty more to come as we continue to expand.
Yeah, he's breaking ground. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I mean, we say that, right? And you go, okay, so in your mid-30s, you're an Ironman athlete or a long-distance athlete. But then I was watching guys like Daniel Backergaard and Sam Long and like younger guys who seem to lead these longer events now. So are we reaching a point now where we've got three separate pathways almost? You've got an Olympic distance pathway, you've got the super short SLT stuff, and then you've got the long distance. And you can kind of pick and stick rather than progress upwards. Is that what it takes, or will it take in the next generation to shine rather than go 1, 2, 3 like we've always done because the standards are so high?
That's actually a great question. And I guess my fear as a coach, if I was going to say fearful, is that people like Sam Long, I think Lucy Charles Barkley got into long distance at a pretty young age as well and has had a tremendous success. They're outliers. And sometimes you have somebody who is incredibly durable, genetically is just like a huge horsepower aerobic machine. And when they're young, they're able to absorb mileage and be resilient, and they can get out and race and do that long stuff. And Sam may have a great career until he's 40. He just may be that kind of an athlete. But I don't think it's the typical development pathway. It's an atypical development pathway, and there's even learning race intelligence in this short format. Like being crafty and draft legal racing as well on the road, when it's highly technical and you're having to make really, really quick decisions. That is something that you learn there that is harder to pick up later in life if you go straight into long distance. And now, I've worked with other athletes who've come to the sport a little bit later in their life. Like Lindsay Corbin is a great example. She started age group triathlon in long course after running, cross country and being a downhill skier, and it's just a good engine, but it took her a while to figure out how to win races because she's doing these long course races. You can't race every single weekend, and you don't get that exposure to that high concentration of, 50 absolute animals out there who, it's cutthroat, right? Like one mistake and you're out of it. So you really have to learn how to think quick on your feet. So they're unique and they're both exciting in different ways. And it sure was a lot of fun to watch the different championships pan out this past weekend.
One thing that was an issue at both events, though, was the heat. I mean, I couldn't walk outside for 30 seconds in Singapore without being completely drenched in sweat. And we watched Beth Potter dig insanely deep and be shaking after that one. And it was a lot of discussion around how hot and humid it was. And Utah's obviously different, but in the way that it probably sneaks up on you, the dehydration there, because it's cooler, and when it heats up, it's very dry. So, I mean, preparation and management of those different types of conditions extremely important to be able to perform.
Absolutely. So, humid heat is different from dry heat. So you make a good point there. A lot of times you're out in that dry heat in the desert and you're sweating and it's evaporating off your body and you actually don't have a real sense of what your sweat rate is and how much you're losing. And that can really sneak up on you. You get to the end of the day and you pull off your kit and it's, it used to be black and now it's white. It's just crusted in salt and that's all that's left. But when you get into that high humidity, it's even more repressive. That's why they have that, here's the temperature and here's the feels like temperature, which is usually, 5 degrees Celsius higher, and it's absolutely brutal. So there's a couple of things to consider. Now, first of all, I think we've saw it on the weekend. Some athletes just genetically are better in the heat. And in my days with the Sports Center in Canada, we used to take athletes over to Hawaii, take our Canadians. We'd have Canadians, from the Northern Hemisphere. Some would race incredibly well in the heat and some wouldn't. And you think, well, okay, Canadians racing well in the heat, that doesn't make sense. So we would take them to the track in Kona and they'd swallow this pill with a thermometer and a radio transmitter. And we do intervals on the track and we hold this thing up to their stomach after every interval and measure their core temperature. And, it was actually unbelievable. We had one guy we called the Iceman because his core temperature wouldn't even go up. I mean, this guy was cold all the time, even in Kona. And of course, so he was did really well in the heat. And we had another woman who was a Canadian Olympian who, always just, it's in my head. I'm just not good at managing the heat on a head case. And then we actually measured her core temperature, and it was up, 1.5 degrees higher than anybody else. Like she was like almost ready to go to the hospital when you kind of put that on the scale of what's safe. So there is that genetic part, but you can also train yourself to adapt to the heat. And by putting yourself in that, in a hot indoor climate with humidity, so you can get a humidifier going. You can buy a thermometer that measures heat and humidity. You can do it at home, a little makeshift, 90 minutes a day, 5 days in a row. Try and gradually elevate heart rate, and you will see yourself adapt over time. Whether you want to put yourself through that kind of self-torture is another conversation. But, if you're racing for paychecks, you have to do that stuff. We actually have a heat trailer here at our sports center, and where we can do a little bit more scientifically and really, control climate and measure core temperature through a couple of pathways and see the adaptation and measure the adaptation in athletes. And one of the things that happens is their sweat rate goes up. They get more efficient at sweating. Sodium content in the sweat gets lower as they acclimate as well. So they're actually losing less sodium, which is a good thing because it helps them maintain hydration. They're able to absorb the fluid that they drink. And their blood plasma volume gets higher as well. And that's important for a number of things, delivering oxygen to working muscles, delivering nutrient to working muscles. But, when you sweat, your skin gets red and all that water comes to the surface. Well, that's coming out of your blood plasma, right? So when you're sweating, your blood volume in your body is getting lower. So that's why rehydration protocols are important. That's why you saw athletes dumping water all over themselves and drinking every chance they could get, even in the middle of these, 5 minutes on the bike all out, and they're still like rinsing down, even though they're riding as hard as they can because they're doing everything that they can on course. And then, of course, there is on-course management as well, too. So putting ice in hats. There's technical fabrics you can wear around your neck and on your head that have cooling qualities. They have crystals in them. Putting ice on any of your heat centers does help a lot. Some athletes actually will carry ice in their hands, and there's been a lot of research on that too. If you just carry a block of ice in your hand, it keeps your core temperature down. So strategies involved, and it does make a difference. But tell me, Will, when I watched the coverage, I think I saw more pain faces this weekend than in London. How about you?
Well, it was. They were all saying that it was very humid on the pool deck in London as well. So, but definitely it was more visceral to watch. And you saw the athletes with, Beth Potter had the ice around her neck, and people with ice on their heads and down the front of their shirt. Yeah. And I honestly, Vicky Holland and I ate a lot of ice creams too during the course of the weekend. We had a couple.
I'm glad you're taking care of yourself and making sure you don't overheat. Way to be a pro.
I was coping better on the fifth day, and that's how I did it. So that's probably something you could look into for your athletes.
Okay. Ice cream stands on the Ironman course.
There's other problems. There's other problems to come with it, but it could be that. Something I want to ask you, and I guess this is a question that it's just not necessarily as much to do with Super League and the pro racing, but obviously there's a lot of age group athletes, including myself, who are watching this and listening to you, and time training in different energy zones. So and I guess we can tie in Humango here and what that does and how that would help. And how age group athletes can be a little more scientific about how they go about it, because for a long time I was like, right, I don't have a lot of time, right? So I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to hammer a session out, and it's always going to be the same. Some of you like threshold sessions over and over and over. And
the 40-minute run over and over and over.
Because you're like, this is how much time I got to do this. So how can age groupers be a little bit more, who have to juggle a lot of things, be a little more scientific about how they go about their training to get the best results out of themselves?
So that's a great question and a great comment. So I'd like to talk about, I call it the 80-50 rule. We've heard of the 80-20 rule before. I call it the 80-50 rule.
I don't think I've got 130 in me, mate.
And it's basically, you can gain 80% of your max fitness in 50% of the training time. And then it's exponentially more time to get that last 20%. So for a lot of us who are, time crunched and we're trying to be really efficient, you don't have to train 20, 25 hours a week. It's a sort of sort of diminishing returns on that extra time put in. So then you take it to the next level and you go, okay, if you're going to slice and dice your training plan, what's most important? And what I did was I went through dozens of athletes, and there's some great tools that we have that can quickly discern and extrapolate how much time they're spending in different energy systems for all these athletes training for different distances. And that was really valuable because, athletes have all kinds of curveballs in life, and it's not always, Monday to Sunday is the same program. They get sick, they have a meeting at work, So in a bird's eye view, when you look at 8 or 12 weeks through a development phase in a training plan, how much time are they spending in each energy system at a period of their progression, in their physiological progression? Have I lost you yet?
Totally.
So, yeah. So let's say we're in our base phase, or we're going into our preparation phase where we're building. As we move forward, intuitively okay, we're going to spend a little bit more time doing some anaerobic work, and we're going to spend a little bit more time doing some threshold work. So zone 4, and then zone 5, we call it. And then that zone 3 work, that tempo work. What happens though is there are limits within each phase of how much of those high end sessions you can do. It doesn't matter how many. If you're training 40 hours a week, you can still only do so much work above threshold, or you're going to blow your legs to smithereens. So what we had to do is actually go through and create, okay, what are the caps? What are the absolute limits of within those energy systems of no matter how much time you're spending within the week? And then how are you going to distribute the rest of that training time within the week so it's still effective? So you're not doing your 5-hour Ironman ride on Saturday and you've got all your anaerobic and threshold intervals within that 5-hour ride too. I mean, that would make no sense whatsoever, right? So what we did was we figured out that there were certain percentages of time, and for me, when I started to parse it out, I was like, that just seems really low. Like it's a 4%. When I'm peaking, only 4% of my time is anaerobic work. But when you think, okay, well, if that's 4% of 20 hours, that's about 50 minutes of anaerobic work. And if you think about it, well, that's going to the track and running 5 times 800 meters above threshold. That's a big workout, and that doesn't take a lot of time. So how do we make sure that, if you're using this AI platform, which is super cool, that you don't crank somebody and you're not backing up day after day after day? You're actually putting hard limits in how much time in each period you can spend in each energy system, and then the rest gets distributed into aerobic work. And what I found was, outside of absolute novice athletes who have to spend more time just in aerobic adaptation, when you get into intermediate, expert, and even my professional athletes, the ceilings were pretty darn close. Like our pros were able to handle a little bit more of that intensity. And then the other thing that we found was that the middle zones, that zone 3, as we got closer to our event, actually came down, except if you were training for a longer course like Ironman, where actually that is kind of your bread and butter and your sweet spot. So you would start doing more and more of that sort of zone 3 work, which is just a little bit at or just above race pace, and you'd actually have to tailor off the others. So that's a long and convoluted answer to your question, which basically says, be careful not to cook your goose doing too much anaerobic work too early in the season, and then make sure as you get closer to your race that you're doing more threshold and anaerobic work, but you're taking out that middle zone so that your aerobic work is very separated, so that you're not overloading your muscles and your energy systems.
And Humango can do that for you, right?
Or if I've completely confused you, Humango is going to work it all out for you, because you're wearing all these incredible technologies, wearable technologies, which are capturing all your data. And you got 2 of them going. I got
the Garmin.
I
got the Whoop strap.
Yeah, and it's a backup plan. If one goes wrong, the other one's got you covered.
Yeah, exactly. One of them tells me when to train, the other one tells me when to sleep. I need something to do, man. Otherwise, I will do the same session every single time. And I think a lot of people they know what they know, and they just go do it. So that's,
Yeah.
I guess, where Humango, comes in and adapts with you. Like if you haven't slept, like I've just moved about like a bunch of time zones in the weekend back and forth, be able to adapt to what's happening with you, right?
That's right. And we do measure sleep and we do measure recovery. And, it's measured as far as training load and it's called fitness. And if fatigue levels get too high, then the program is going to recalibrate what's coming up in the near future. And then as a human being, you have the right to override it and say, no, I still want to go hammer my brains out. Don't tell me what to do. Yeah.
I'm going to override it in the opposite direction and go, I'm just going to take the next couple of days off, Humango. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
What do you do? Nothing.
Well, then there's this feature with red sirens that come on, and
a representative from Humango is going to come wake me up from my nap and say, mate, it's time to go. It sounds outstanding, and to an extent, it can't completely fill the professional coach ranks, but it can go a damn long way, which is exactly what cutting edge technology.
Well, it is. It's actually a tool for coaches as well, Will, too, and it's allowing coaches to distill more data than ever before. So if you think about it, it's a tool to help streamline what you do, and you can still customize it as a coach as well.
Oh, well, I was just saying that because I didn't want you to feel like entirely replaced. But if you're happy for that, then yeah, you're entirely replaced. And thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate joining us on Coach's Corner and giving a little bit of an insight, not only into what happened in long course and short course over the weekend, but also how age groupers can do it a little bit better. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Always great to be here. Thanks, Will.
That was Coach's Corner, and now we move on to yet another doyen, I suppose, in the world of triathlon. Well, he was when he was the fastest, and now he's the second fastest. Shameful silver. Tim Don, live and direct from the US, so which is why we're doing it a little bit differently, so we didn't make you have to get up in the middle of the night. Whereas I believe you're very close to Specialized HQ and doing stuff with the Zwift Academy. Am I correct?
That's right. I am sat in the cafeteria at 7:30 at night in Specialized HQ. We've just had a Zwift race with all the academy athletes who are going to be racing the Kona World Champs. Things are good. Lots of travel, but yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Now, you're obviously there because you've come direct from Utah, where you're also working with Zwift Academy, but you got the chance to be on the ground there, to see a World Championships outside of Hawaii, to see the first one in a good couple of years that we've all been living through. What were your impressions overall about Utah? It was a tough course, and from the outside, it was a great race.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've raced there myself, the 70.3 three times, and St. George get behind it. It is a pain, the split transition being so far apart, but they do a great thing. Everyone's in the same boat. Everyone gets the yellow buses to the start. But no, they put on a great race, and the athletes turned up, and the ones that did start, they really put on a show. And both the women's and men's race had everything. They had the comeback story. You had the guy who said he was going to win, and it was 15% humidity. It was in the low 30s, and it was dry. Like the road, I don't think you could crack an egg on it, but you almost could crack an egg on the road.
And we're talking, obviously we've been talking Arena Games and how hot and humid that was. It's dangerous in another way, that dry heat, because you kind of don't realize how much fluid you're losing, I suppose, because it just dries on your skin. So was that, and how people manage that from your perspective, was that something that played into the factors of how this race went?
Absolutely. I think on the bike, especially it was quite cold. I mean, the water was only 17 degrees and it was fresh for the first couple of hours. And if you raced as if it was going to be that temperature, you were probably putting yourself on the back foot with your hydration strategy. So without a doubt, that played a key part. And you could see the times, everyone ran and rode, fast, but they did drop off towards the end. And I think people had come out a few weeks early, and some of them had already trained in dry, but that dry heat, it's deceptive because, when it's not that hot and you're on the bike, you're not like beading up, you're not really sweating, but you are, it's just evaporating because there's just no moisture. I think people did come a cropper to that, especially the second half of the run.
Let's talk about the women first. And obviously, the Queen is back after some people had thought, we're going to see more of Daniela Ryf at her very best. That's exactly what we saw.
Yeah, her race was fantastic. We know she'd improved her swim over the winter. She was training with some of the Swiss Olympic long course open water swimmers. She had a great swim in Dubai, swimming with Laura Phillips very comfortably. And then there was no bike split that we were getting where she like rode massively quicker. It was kind of like whenever we came to a bike split, it was another 20 seconds, another 20 seconds, 40 seconds. She was just going about her business like she normally did. She came off the bike. I saw her, I was out on the run course and I was giving her splits. I was giving all the women splits. And she wasn't supremely confident. She was still running scared and worried. You know, you could tell she after 1.5 laps of the bike, I think she wanted more. She really pushed that Snow Canyon climb. She rode it. I think she didn't drop off as much as the other women. But yeah, with about just about 18 kilometers to go, she was asking for Arne Haag's run speed. So I'm looking at my phone going, you know, she's like 12 minutes down and she's going, what's her mile pace? So she was not being complacent. But I think in the end of the day, when she looks back, you know, it's a sigh of relief. You know, she's changed the coaches, which we all know. You know, she's had a rough year. You know, her last Kona 2019, she really didn't have a great race. From what she says, the vaccines didn't agree with her. So to do that and, you know, take home the first world title for her, you know, 5 world titles. You know, I've only got 4. I'm jealous.
Oh, that is the worst humble brag I have ever heard. Oh my God.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's disgusting behaviour. In fact, she actually has 11 world titles if you want to add the 5 70.3 wins.
Well, I've got 5 if I take my Super Eagles win as well, you know.
which you shouldn't and can't. She has an under 23 world title, 5 70.3 world championships, and 5 Ironman world titles. So back in your box, Don.
I'm more than happy to beat. She can stand on my box. She can lock it and throw away the key. You know, like I was so happy for her. You know, you could see she's not an emotional person, and when she crossed that line, you know, that 5, you know, I think she was really, you know, she really wanted to go. I am here. Come on, Lucy, are you watching this? Let's be honest, because that's what we all wanted to see. I just hope Lucy's ready and healthy 100% for Kona later in the year.
Yeah, we all do. That will be a classic race. And we're going to throw in Kat Matthews into this mix because, you know, as we talk about someone like Daniela Ryf with a huge legacy, we're also talking about someone who finishes second in her 5th ever Ironman distance race and who was only trying to qualify for Kona 3 years ago. Like, what? It's quite scary, the rise of Kat Matthews and how much more blue sky there is for her in the future.
Yeah, you know, I got slated. Someone quoted me, and I did say it that 3 months ago, no one would have said she was one of the favourites, and everyone goes, "Oh, Tim doesn't know anything." And I said that's not me. I said most other people would not have known that she was that much. I rode with her. Her husband's best mate is one of my good mates, and I've ridden with them like 2 years ago and 1 year ago. You know, it is amazing how quickly she's risen up, and she doesn't. I'm not saying she doesn't have a weapon, but you know, she's just a good swimmer, an amazing biker, an amazing runner, and that I think now you can't just have one weapon and then 2 disciplines which are good, and she's got 2 which are very good, but her swimming is improving, and I think she brings that army mentality where things don't faze her. I think she knew it was going to be a long, hard day. She looked miserable on the first lap of the run. And I don't mean her form, I mean her face. And then her husband stopped and he chatted to me and he goes, "I'm not enjoying this. She's not happy. She's tired. She's fatigued." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe she shouldn't finish." And I was like, "Dude, she's second in the world. You know, let's see what happens." And, you know, I think that was one of her hardest fought. You know, she really had to dig deep for that. And she was rewarded with a second place in a race that she'll look back on and take massive confidence. And I really hope she flew back to Europe and she's building a great team. I think it's a mystery team at the moment, but yeah, I can see great things for her, you know, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think we put up on Phoenix socials a clip of you saying, "I don't think maybe Kat's biting off more than she can chew" to go sub 8. And then down the bottom, there's at Kat Matthews, and there's just a little sad face.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, like, seriously, I mean, that this is big business, you know, like, just because Kristian's won the world title doesn't mean he's going to win again. And, you know, I'm just, you know, I know how hard an Ironman it is. I know how hard it is to compete on that stage. And 2 massive races, the emotional energy, especially the next race is going to be such a unique format and a different, riding not in a pack, but, riding a pace line, swimming on someone's feet, having that unique pressure of hitting times. Doesn't matter who wins, they have to go a time, then it matters who wins. So if they're off schedule and she wins, I'm not saying, they're going to be disappointment. There's a lot of moving parts that come together. But I think if she gets the British Army behind her, she can move mountains, take over continents.
It's been done before.
Maybe we shouldn't talk about that.
Obviously, she should take a lot of confidence, especially from that run where she ended up, obviously outrunning Annie Haug again, second time, did it at Lanzarote as well. Obviously flying high to see if she can turn it around for sub-7, sub-8. And speaking of that, obviously we've got to talk about Kristian Blummenfelt, who has just had the most insane 9 months, from Olympic champion to Ironman world record to what else? So Ironman world champion. What else has he done?
Ironman world record, Ironman world champion. He won the grand final.
Yeah, he won the grand final.
He came to the Super League, won all the heats, and died in the final.
That's right. He sprinted past everyone. Why did he do that?
The helicopter shot. It was like, what the heck? What's he doing? It's like the final.
Yeah, but what a man.
You said what a 9 months, but I'm telling you now, 9 months and 1 day, he believed he could do what he's done. Not many other people could, and I didn't think anyone in the current day and age has the range to be an Olympic champion, a world's fastest Ironman, and then race an Ironman. It's different going fast, like he did in Cozumel. It's a different style of racing to how he raced in St. George. Man, the kid's, he's got a system that's working for him. And that's dangerous. It really, really is.
What is that system, and why can't anyone else begin?
Lactate. Every session, lactate.
He lost a lot of blood from those.
That's what I mean. He came at race weight because he lost so much blood from lactate. No, I know the Norwegians are very open. You can see everything they do on Strava, but I think it's how it's all put together. It's how long they're at altitude, the kind of work they're doing, when they're dropping down, the strength work. I think Dubai was a wake-up call because he did go to Dubai, and I know he got a puncher, but before then he lost a minute in the swim, and that is his vulnerability at the level we're talking. But he did lose 2 minutes in the first 45K, and I think that was a good wake-up call that it's not going to be plain sailing. I think he went back to the drawing board. They worked more on position, and I don't mean getting error, I mean actually doing the effort in it. But yeah, I mean, he's got such an engine, and that's a weapon. And it's nutrition. It's the 4th discipline, and touchwood so far, they've nailed it. So I think the week before he rode the course in 4 hours 30, which was only 16 minutes slower than he rode it on race day. So someone would not normally do that a couple of years. Crowe wouldn't have done that. Do you know what I mean? Macca wouldn't have. Well, no, Macca definitely wouldn't have done. But he's able to do that and back it up. He's like putting his whole faith in his coaching and scientific setup. So I'm really excited and if he tells me he's going to do something, I ain't going to argue with him.
No, I mean, that's true, right? And he's got such faith in what's going on behind the scenes with Olav, his coach, and the sports science team. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. He believes in them. They believe in him. They deliver. He delivers. It gets stronger. He just keeps doing more. So it's interesting that who's over your shoulder?
It's Craig. I've got Will
classic. Classic. The Zwift guys are trying to muscle in on the podcast.
Yeah.
Speaking of nutrition, though, and because I love him, and some people don't, but Lionel Sanders, is he figuring out life? Because after 2017, and then he went vegan, and then now he drank maple syrup for a year and done all sorts of silly stuff that I thought was a bit over the top. Is he got it right now?
I don't know, and I don't think he knows. He had a private press conference at a golf resort, which I snuck into, and he had a table with all his equipment that he's sponsored by, and he still had a big thing of maple syrup on the table. Yeah, so it had like his helmet, his watch, his shoes, his bike, all of that jazz. So I don't know if he raced on it or not. I cannot deny or confirm he did, but he did have a liter of it. But I don't know, because he kind of he changes his mind like he's going out of fashion. Do you know what I mean? And, and again, are the Norwegians going to see him as a real threat? And are they going to pull back from working with him? Because I know Gustav's brother is, I don't know if coaching, advising. But yeah, Lionel's racing again this weekend. I know it's only a relay in Los Angeles, but, I just hope he keeps on the path that he's on, because he had a great performance. I didn't look like it, especially on the run, let's be honest. Let's see. I think the future will hold what it will hold for Lionel. But if he doesn't change anything, I think he's going to go well later in the year as well. And as he said, and I do agree with this, that is the best back half marathon he's ever run. So I hope he sticks to that philosophy, that doesn't try and run the first half too hard, so he can execute that. Because the way he came over Braden Curry was just phenomenal. Like mentally, he talks he's the strongest guy, but actually physiologically as well, he had the energy to do that. Go maple syrup.
That comes off the back of a few walks. Everyone's walked at some point, I guess, when you talk to professional athletes, but Ironman athletes. But he's had a few in a row, so. Let's hope off a 2:42 marathon he can deliver on his long-held promise, which would be good, I think, for everyone in the sport. I think he's awesome, but a lot of people maybe not. But anyway,
he's like Marmite,
What's that?
He's like Marmite. You either love him or you hate him.
That's exactly right. Are you like? And by the way, it's Vegemite, mate. But do you?
Sorry,
love it?
Breaking up again. It's Marmite. No, I can't stand it. My sister loved it. And she'd put it on a toast and put it under my nose when I was a kid. Oh no, mate, it's not my cup of by
You have to get on it,
jam.
Yeah, all right, fair. But you got to get on it when you're one. Like you have, if you've lost, by the time you're three, it's a little bit like getting into triathlon. If you don't start by the time you're three, you're pretty much behind the eight ball. Vegemite and triathlon's the same.
I totally agree with you right now.
Who else do I want to pull out? Ruth Astle was good.
Real top 5. I mean, she was in the Zwift Academy in 2018, and for her to do that, I mean, what a progression. 5th in the world from winning Kona as an amateur, and then 2 years before that from working like 402 hours a week, and doing triathlon as a hobby. It's just brilliant. And again, she's working on a weakness, but she's not letting her strength go. She's really powerful on the bike, really aerodynamic. She's back in that run. She's getting fitter and fitter and stronger. Yet her swim is really, really coming good. I was really impressed with that. And again, these are honest races.
Here's a little reveal for you, mate. And nobody knows this yet, but we'll say it on the podcast. Ruth is going to be one of Kat's pacemakers.
Oh, that's not good at all.
Why is that?
Well, because she's so aerodynamic and that no one's going to get any draft behind. No, that's brilliant. And I think that's a good sign, because I think Kat enjoys positive energy and they are really good friends. And I just think their camp's going to be so different to Nicola's camp. And that's a really good thing. But I hope she's not as aero, because she is like I've been in the wind tunnel with her and she really works on her position so much. I like that. That's a good tip. Very good.
Well, yeah, sure. Well, she's going to be one of probably 7 bike pacemakers. So
India Lee, I reckon she's going to be in there.
I can confirm that is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see.
We're getting a few tidbits now.
Yeah. Let me think. Yeah, there's a few other people I think might jump. That's brilliant. No. I just hope they come together. I know. I know Matt. I know Kristian's got a camp. I think on Sunday they're flying out to a camp somewhere. So yeah, we'll see.
It's on. Now, anyone else you want to pull out from your Ironman experiences? I thought Cam Worth was ridiculous because he just is the way he does things. Is there anyone else who you or any impressions from Utah before we wrap up this segment of the podcast that you'd like to throw at us?
3 weeks from the Cobble Classic to controlling that pack and really driving it forward was brilliant. I thought I felt really sorry for Andre Drietz. He's been racing really well. He had a big bad puncher earlier in the year when he was in great shape, and then he had a crash. A motorbike stopped in front of him and he snapped his frame, and that was his race over. So I thought he was on for a good one. In the women's race, it was really spread out and out the swim, and that was without Lucy. So I think Lucy would have looked at that and thought, you know what, Daniela would have that would have been a great battle. I've got to mention the people who didn't start. Am I allowed to do that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I was gutted. I mean, the word on the street was Al was in great shape. Gustav was 1.2 millimoles above or below Gustav. They would have really impacted. I think there would have been more firepower. So maybe Cam Worth wouldn't have dragged that pack up as to the front. Alistair would have really been driving that. And I think Gustav would have made that lead group as well. And he knows what shape Kristian's in. But yeah, it was a great race. And there's so many people that had good races. How many? Four British women in the top 8, top 9. That's phenomenal.
It's the same at World Triathlon level. They'll go, like Vicky. I speak to Vicky Holland the other day. She's like, remember this race last year where I was? That's when she's kind of decided to retire. She's like, I was 10th and I was 6th Brit.
Yeah, no. It's good, but it's bad if you're one of those Brits, because even if you're the best Brit, you've got someone chomping up your on your heels. So yeah, I mean, it's great. And I thought, we had we had a Norwegian, a Canadian, and a Kiwi. So we had, 3 continents. We had a more of a European flavour on the women, but it's coming from all angles. It doesn't, I know Kiwi had big lockdown, but Braden Kane, he went to Cedar Rapids. He was there for, I think, 3.5, 4 weeks before with one of the age groupers who I think he won the age group overall. They had a great training camp. So yeah, that he hasn't had much international top level racing. He didn't do any of the Collins Cup stuff. So fair play. Great racing.
Oh, before I let you go, that reminds me, we're actually recording this. It's a bit all over the shop, but we're recording this bit before the men's race at Yokohama, and it reminded me to ask you who you think's going to win, so that when people listen to this later at the start of next week, they can see whether you prove right or not. Because I know Hayden Wilde went on a couple of weeks training camp with Braden Curry before Ironman World Champ. So who do you think?
I think it's a wetsuit swim. So if it is a wetsuit swim, I think Hayden and Alex all the way, and I don't think Alex is going to be able to do what he did at Leeds. But then Martin van Riel, he's a funny one because he had such a great 70.3. I want to see him up there, but I think he's got a new bike. He's very flash and bright, and he loves racing in Asia. So I'd like to see him go well. But I think Alex and Hayden, I'm going to have to go Alex, because he's my eagle. And yeah, Hayden's the Falcon. And then, Van Riel for third spot.
3 Arena Games athletes, all of whom competed with varying levels of success, I suppose.
But I want to put Vasco in there as well, because he's got a new, and Vince.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Vasco, he's changed car. No, I'm going to stick with those 3.
I can give you top 5, mate. We can put Vasco and Vince at 4th and 5th. That's fine.
They've done it.
All Super League athletes, the top 3 Arena Games athletes all competed in Singapore, and obviously the Falcon taking it out and doing it, to be fair, pretty easy. It looked easier.
Proper class.
Yeah,
proper class.
He is class. He really, really is. TD, thank you very much. I'm sure there's a lot of banging going on in the background there, so I'm sure they're packing up the buffet or whatever they're doing over there.
They've moved all the bikes out, and we've just ordered Thai food, and then we're going to watch the men's race in the hotel.
I would like to be on this camp one day if you can arrange that.
There's lots of Modelo as well being consumed. It's very good for you.
By you. Yeah, I understand. All right. Thanks, Tim. And that wraps up the Short Chute Show. It's been a bit hodgepodge, but we've managed to get a lot of voices in and cover a lot of topics, so we hope you enjoyed it. Stay on superleaguetriathlon.com for more as we now continue our build-up to the championship season, which isn't too far away. Thanks, TD.